Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm. I hope you've been having a great start of the year with January, February coming in. Hope your reads have been good. Mine have been a bit iffy because work has been crazy at the moment. But moving on from that, today we have another book review, and this time we're delving into science fiction, which we know we don't have that much here, so let's try and create more. And this time we have Aurora by Stanley Robinson. For the ones that don't know, Aurora is a standalone novel, so no prequels, no sequels, nothing like that. It's a hard science fiction book, and I'll be talking about that in the review. And it was published in 2015. When it was published, it was nominated for 4 different awards. However, it wasn't able to win any of them, unfortunately. You've probably heard about this author if you are a fan of science fiction, because he wrote a very famous and very acclaimed science fiction trilogy, the Mars trilogy, which is composed by Red Mars, Green Mars, and Blue Mars. These 3 books I have here. I've read them. I think they're quite good. They delve into a lot of concepts that I found fascinating. They had also a few issues, so they weren't exactly a 5 out of 5, but I consider them very strong in the hard science fiction subgenre. Anyways, this book has gathered over 26,000 ratings, and the score it has on Goodreads averages on 3.78 out of 5, which it isn't that good. We know that science fiction always goes a bit down, but let's see how my score fares in comparison. But of course, before we jump into the actual review, just one housekeeping item, which is the synopsis. If you don't want to hear anything about this book because you don't want to be spoiled whatsoever, then just skip to the timestamp. It's floating around and you won't hear anything. Otherwise, just stick around. It's a short one, so it'll be quick and sweet. Our voyage from Earth began generations ago. Now we approach our destination, a new home, Aurora. And that's it. Yep, that is it. I did say there was quite a short synopsis. There's not much detail. And I mean, what you get to know, it's probably what you find out in the first 2-3 pages. But anyways, let's go into the actual review, starting with plot. As one of the few things that this synopsis says, the plot of this story revolves around the generational ship towards a new planet called Aurora, which is a planet in the system of Tau Ceti. We follow 2 major POVs in this book. One of them is Freya, which is a girl that has been born in this ship from a lot of generations in this ship. And I'm saying ship a lot of times and I'm getting aware of that, so I'm going to stop saying ship. And the other POV is the ship's AI system. And this one is a bit more interesting because it's kind of like an omnipresent POV, since the ship is constantly aware of everything that happens in it, and so it kind of becomes almost a narrator slash god or entity that oversees all. I thought that the plot itself was good in the first half, and I would say interesting in the second half. However, I did think it dropped a bit in quality towards the end. So if I were to draw, I would say like it started high, then it went a bit mid, and towards the end it kind of went a bit bad. And I think this happened because we changed the focus of the book just one too many times. Because I think in the start of the book, the objective of the book is we're heading towards Aurora. There are problems to solve, we need to solve them, which is so far so good. Then they get to Aurora and there are problems to solve, which again, so far so good. However, what happens after is what I consider starts becoming a deviation of the plot, or at least the expectations that we as a reader were set at the start. And this might be a bit spoilery, so skip a few seconds, maybe half a minute, and you won't listen to any of this. But in my opinion, their return to Earth was also okay. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but it was still done okay. But for me, it was when they got there that it got a bit bad, especially because I thought it was enough. We didn't need any more developments. They had gone to a planet, they had come back, so it was enough to stop there. So what I think happened was a bit of an overextension of the plot that wasn't necessary, that didn't add much more to the characters and to the story as a whole. So because of that, I'm gonna give the plot a 4 out of 5. The start of it I thought was great. It was very engaging, the premise was good, it had some plot twists, and everything was rolling well. But yeah, that ending kind of ruined the 5 for me. What about characters? Well, this book is a stereotype of a hard sci-fi book, and if you've read a few of these, you know the trope where Science fiction doesn't really have much about the characters, much character development, and it focuses mostly on the concepts that it introduces. And I feel like this is what we practically see in this novel. We do follow Freya for a long time, and that time includes seeing her grow and seeing her go through tribulations and challenges across her adult life. And the end of the book gives a good ending, or a good end of the arc that is related to Freya, and I thought that was done quite well. However, I did feel like there was something lacking, and that something was more related to the AI POV that we had been also accompanying for the whole of the book. And then towards the end, it felt like we were extending this beyond the life of the AI. And in my perspective, I think that the AI is the main POV of this story, because we see it go from an algorithm AI that is just responding to what people are feeding it, to actually developing a personality and developing this, not feelings, but a simulation of, and developing a sense of being. And I think that journey was very well characterized, but then it ends and we kind of continue the story, so it didn't feel as important as Freya, when I think it should have been the other way around. And I think that regarding the POV of the ship's AI, it was amazing. I think it was very well done, very progressively getting better and more, I think, detailed and genuine. And I think that is rare, especially in this type of hard sci-fi. So for me, this category will give a 4 out of 5, just because these two characters were very well developed, but aside from that, it's quite empty, so don't expect much more. Moving on to world building, well, the world in this story is pretty much the ship. We spend, I would say, 90% maybe of the time in the ship. So I would expect us to have a coherent and detailed ship regarding world building. And I think that was delivered. The idea seemed good, so far as I know of spaceships, because I wouldn't be able to say if the specific science of it is accurate or not, but it seemed okay. And then the other thing that we have is Aurora as a backdrop, as a part of the world that we get to explore a tiny bit. And I think that part was also very well done, from the descriptions of the world to the ship, how the people interacted with the world and with the ship. And I think Stanley Robinson excelled in the fact of taking into account what happens when you put animals and people in a closed environment like this and keep breeding them over and over again. Again, that part is more of my specialty, so I was paying a lot of attention to that and seeing if he would mention, which he did. Of course, he wasn't the main focus of the book, but I thought, okay, he is onto it, so I'm more confident that the story will be faithful to the science. So for this category, I'm also giving 4 out of 5. After this, we have writing style, and Stanley Robinson, as I said, is a true hard science fiction writer. So expect a lot, and when I say a lot, it's really a lot of detail in terms of the science and how things work. It was the same in his Mars trilogy. I think it can be quite dry and maybe even difficult to read at times. But I think if you can keep up and if you can push through the details that exist, it can turn into a very informative journey. I think it also makes for a better experience of what you can imagine and what are the boundaries of science. But so if the prose is like this, what about the pacing of the book? I think that also has some problems, not as big as the prose, I would say. I think throughout the book there is ups and downs, which is exactly what you want, because you don't want a book that it's always at the same level because you get bored. So the ups and downs are good. However, towards the end, I felt that that down was constantly down and tapering off for too long, like I mentioned before, and it just kept going on and on and on and on, and could have ended a lot sooner. So I think it could have been edited better or readjusted so that we wouldn't have that extension of the ending that didn't really give us that much. So for writing style, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. But I mean, you might give it more because you might enjoy this type of writing more than I do. However, that is up to you, of course. And our last category is enjoyment. How did I enjoy this book? There were parts where I was getting really excited, and those parts were when the books seemed to be veering towards my area of expertise, which is genetics and genetic diversity, or how you would lose genetic diversity in a ship like this. However, as I progressed the book and I started realizing that actually that wouldn't be the focus of the book, I kind of lost my enjoyment a bit because of it. But then what grabbed me was actually the AI's development or character development, because suddenly I was feeling that I was quite attached to this ship and wanted to see how it was going to progress in their evolution, and I was happy for that. But then as we reached towards the end, my enjoyment went down again because it was getting overextended. So I feel like this book was a roller coaster of enjoyment. However, I think my final score for enjoyment will be a 4, although it's probably a very low 4, almost reaching the 3 because of that ending and the start of it not being really meeting my expectations. But it's still a 4, so take that into account. And so we finish our review here. Just as a refresher, we have 4 for plot, 4 for characters, 4 for world building, and then 3 for writing style and 4 for enjoyment, which gives us a final score of 3.8 out of 5. It is super close to the Goodreads score, which is 3.78 out of 5. And I guess that makes my opinion quite similar to the average population, which I think is normal. I think this book had very good themes that could have been explored further, but I think other themes were prioritized when they shouldn't have really. And I guess that for many people, the overextension of detailing in the science part might be a deterrent for them to give a higher score, because they might feel bored or they might feel like it's a dry read. I enjoyed some of those parts. I agree that it can be quite dry. I was having difficulties reading some of those parts, but I think in the end I still enjoyed it. I would probably recommend this book for fans of Kim Stanley Robinson, but it wouldn't be my first Kim Stanley Robinson book that I would recommend to other readers. For that, I think the Red Mars trilogy was probably better and more engaging than this one. But I mean, let me know what you think. Have you read this book or this trilogy? Comment down below. I want to know more about, or do you actually think there's another Kim Stanley Robinson book that is better than any of these that I've mentioned? If so, again, let me know. I'm very keen to read more hard sci-fi. And if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and you'll be seeing me on Thursdays and Sundays. Okay? See you soon.